On behalf of GVM, Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, I extend a warm welcome to each one of you. This is Goretti Falcon, the coordinator of the Department of Extension Services here. The annual observance of the International Day of Disabled Persons on the 3rd of December was proclaimed in 1992 by the United Nations General Assembly resolution. The observance of the day aims to promote an understanding of disability issues and mobilize support for the dignity, rights, and well-being of persons with disabilities. It also seeks to increase awareness of gains to be derived from the integration of persons with disability in every aspect of political, social, economic, and cultural life. To commemorate this day, GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, the Department of Extension Services, is organizing this webinar on identifying children with special needs in the primary school. We have amongst us Dr. Jojan Matthew, the principal of GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, Parmagudi Ponda, and I now invite Sir to address the gathering. Sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. And it's a privilege for me to be a part of this national seminar. And as you all know, disability inclusion is a very important condition for upholding. May I request if anybody's mic is on, maybe you can just switch off your mic. Okay, thank you. Reshma, I think your mic is on. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So disability inclusion is a very important condition, as I said, to uphold human rights and sustainable development. And see, the world is facing a lot of humanitarian challenges today. And you know that what all things are happening, the COVID is almost getting over, and some part of the world it's starting again. And war, we are hearing of wars, and there are a lot of issues that are going on right now in the world, and a lot of humanitarian challenges that we are facing. Now, in such vulnerable situations, persons with disability are the most excluded and left behind. So it is very, very important that we all, I would say that whoever is involved, like maybe the government, institutions, individuals, we all come together and we need to innovate some solutions, for persons with disability to make the world more accessible and equitable. So I recently read about, disabilities in different countries, how they address it. Like even in UAE, I was very much interested that they don't call a person with disability persons with determination. So we need to focus on these aspects of their abilities and what all things that we can do instead of focusing on defects or disabilities like that. So today we have our Dr. Gargi is a well-known person in our state in the field of special education. And we are really privileged to have you, ma'am, here this evening, this afternoon, to address our students on a very, very important topic, that is identifying children with special needs in primary schools. I don't think that anybody else is qualified to talk on this topic like our Dr. Gargi. So I welcome you to this seminar, and also I would welcome all the other faculty members and students, and thanks the organizers for organizing such a wonderful seminar for us this evening, and wish you all the best. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom. With NEP 2020 at the backdrop, inclusive education and creating a just and equitable climate becomes the cornerstone of all educational decisions. The talk is primarily going to be on understanding the different domains of development, what variations may be noticed in some children's trajectory of development, and identify the learning and social behaviors that would require support. So the purpose of this interaction is to identify the areas of support and touch upon the equity aspect and discuss on how it can be built. And for this, we have with us a well-known personality in this field of inclusive education, which is none other than Dr. Gargi Sinha. Dr. Gargi is an academic seeker and a change manager towards inclusion. She is presently the principal of Dayanvardini Divyang Training College, Bogda Vasco. Dr. Sinha has worked with close association with government and non-government bodies in setting up teacher training institutes, policy formulation on inclusive education, early intervention, and vocational curriculum in administrative capacity. She is a coach and mentor of inclusive education who has the universal design of learning, differentiated instruction, and RTI models in regular schools. A co-faculty for B.Ed and educational consultant for more than 12 years, she has spearheaded activity-based learning and teaching and alternative modes of evaluation in mainstream schools through hands-on training of teachers. A certified program leader for the Cambridge International Certificate in Teaching and Learning, she has been an advisor in planning, executing, and monitoring alternative schooling and resource room infrastructure to facilitate inclusive education. She has conducted workshops in India and Dubai for management, principals, teachers, and parents, conceptualized and implemented projects on education, and has handled children with disabilities right from preschool to secondary level in special and inclusive settings for the last 21 years. She has published papers on alternative evaluation, curriculum modification, inclusive education, and universal design of learning. Dr. Gargi, ma'am, we are delighted to have you here on this platform. And it's now over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Such a detailed introduction was not required at all. And ma'am, I'm not Dr. Sinha. I'm happy to be Gargi, so I'm Dr. Gargi. If you may add, please add me as Dr. Gargi P. Sinha.
Surely,
So
ma'am.
all my participants who are sitting here, getting bored with all these introductions, let me just tell you, I'm a walker and a learner. And I have just realized how old I have become by walking this path. And today, when I was, making this, trying to make a PPT for you all, I realized 10 years before when I would be giving this kind of a presentation, obviously, this webinar was not known to me then. We would be physically present. At that time, I would be focusing on each and every disability, talk about the conditions, and then say, see, this needs to be done, that needs to be done. Without realizing, in that process, what I've actually done is I have highlighted the deficits. Sir so beautifully said today, I really liked the concept, persons with determination. So for many years now, we define disability as a cover within the bracket. So it is a session on discover abilities and not disabilities. With that introduction, I will share my screen with you. Are all of you in a receptive mood? It's almost the fag end of the day. Tomorrow is a holiday. It's a very special day. Are all of you in a receptive mood?
Surely, ma'am.
Okay. I am asking that because this is not going to be just a presentation. I have told in my the introduction that I was requested to send. I told that it would be an introduction, sorry, it would be an interaction. So I will be showing you some slides, but definitely I want you to interact with me. Hope you will be there. So with this I start my presentation, identifying children with varying needs. I believe in focusing, concentrating, and seeking the presence of Almighty to bless the session. So I would request all of you to close your eyes and count 30 with me to invoke the presence of Almighty. In whichever form you believe in, let us pray that this session be successful and we can carry the learnings to the main area. That's the temple of learning, the classrooms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Are you all ready for this session?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, before we start talking about identification, start talking about what we need to do, I would like all of you to focus on the developmental domains. Now, all of us being teachers, we understand that when a child comes to us right from the pre-primary stage, we start working on his or her physical motor development. The child runs, the child walks, the child climbs, the child plays, child cuts, pastes, and at the same time we are working on the cognitive language development, where we are working on the intellect of the child, we are working on building the creativity of the child, and at the same time, we are looking into something called social emotional development, which I guess has taken a back seat during the COVID times, where children, through PowerPoint presentations, maybe got the concepts but didn't get the buddy to share it with. So we will see how all these domains, it's again, I told you it's an interactive session. So I would request you to sit down with a paper and a pen. We will start with a short acronym. This acronym is called PILES. So P is for physical development, I is for intellectual development, L is for language development, E is for emotional development, and S is for social development. So when a child comes to us, whichever class you are teaching, whichever level you are in, please close your eyes once and look into inside your classroom. So do you think all these activities are taking place in the classroom? Is there a lot of physical development taking place inside your classroom? If it is happening, please think and jot down. Can you see any one or two or three people who are not showing or who are showing differently physical development, not like your class. You can immediately understand, no, this is not matching with my class standards. Have you experienced such things? Would you care to share them with me? If I don't get response, I can't proceed because the whole seminar is based on you and me interacting. So, do you see these jumping, running in your class? Do the hands, little hands, work with the clay or maybe paper? Is there a lot of eye hand coordination? Are they moving in different directions? Are they dancing, exercising? And amongst that, can you locate one or two persons who are not behaving in this typical manner?
Yes, ma'am.
So, can you just give me an example of what you have seen?
Ma'am, I have a particular child in my class. Uh, if I ask her to sit, she she sits down, but then she puts her head down. She either closes her eyes with the hand, the palm of her hand, and I see some different type of a behavior in her, ma'am. But she behaves, she behaves quite well. But then there are some instincts in her that makes her a little bit different from the others. Like she sits under the table, under the desk, I mean to say, and she eats her lunch or whatever tiffin she's carrying, and then she just flings a tiffin somewhere here or there. She removes her hairband, she puts it somewhere. Her books are all scattered. But if I ask her to sit, she sits.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. So, thank you. Ma'am has covered a lot of other areas. So, as I am talking about only the physical development now, I can see the person sits right when asked to. Maybe she stands, maybe she walks around. Okay. So, when we are talking about the intellectual development, how the person's intellectual growth has been, whether the person is able to show creativity, whether the person can label shapes, objects, whether the person is solving problems, whether the person has planning skills to work on an activity, if she can compare and contrast materials, if she can predict or he can predict cause and effect relationships, then well, whatever are my goals, they are being met with. My question is, have anybody seen or interacted with any person in your class who is not showing the class level intellectual development? If you can notice someone, would you please share it with us? Someone's mic is unmuted and it's causing a little disturbance. If I may request to mute it. The sound is still coming. Thank you. No, no, it's still there. So would someone please share? Would you all like to share if you have noticed anything which is not as per the intellectual growth that is expected of your class? Yes, in the primary level, it may not be directly visible, but have you all experienced it where certain children are very fast at grasping concepts. Some children take it very, very slowly. Has that happened?
Yes, ma'am.
So, what exactly have you noticed? Where lies the, if I may say, where lies the lacunae? What happens? Why do you say that yes? May I expect a response? You're all primary school teachers, right? So, what happens when you say set a goal for your class, when you're teaching color concepts? What is it that you notice which is amiss? Where is the variation? Is there a variation or there isn't? Is there anyone who is there in this session with me? Because I can only see the screen. I can't see any one of you. Is anyone there?
Ma'am, we all are with you. We all are with you, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm just asking you, what is it that we notice when we say that yes, the development is not age appropriate? What do we notice? What do we say? What is one practical example that you can give me from your class? Do we see that person learning in the same pace as others? Do we see that person doing the same kind of reading and writing? Maybe we see that person excellent in oral responses, but when it comes to writing, there is a difficulty. But in all these areas, if we look at language development, maybe some are not as quick as having a conversation as the others. Maybe some, as ma'am already gave an example, just sits and puts her head down, cannot express the words and feelings. Maybe there is some difficulty in the emotional development, in the social development, where it becomes very difficult to express feelings, where the person is for nothing getting angry, where the person is always bullying others, where the person has very low self-esteem, completely helpless in everything, whatever is given to that person, the person says, sorry, no, I can't do it. I don't think I'll be able to do. This person is never able to complete task on time. Everything is disorganized. So when we have all these characteristics, this is my question. This is how I have changed my way of interacting with the so called typical world consisting of regular educators, parents, management. It doesn't help if we label. In all these empty label, RTI, Right to Disabilities Act 2016, has identified 21 disabilities. So I could have put in lovely 21 labels and I could have come and told you, see, this is deaf blindness, this is intellectual disability, this is learning disability, this condition is autism. But how would it help? How would it take the society forward? It would only add to more and more and more barriers. These are the little barriers which I see after, being in Goa for more than 15 years, that even though Goa is a very, very aware state as far as disabilities is concerned, maybe this awareness has caused them to label, to say, I wish I could help this autistic child. Oh my God, this child is with intellectual disabilities. So, what is happening is Lots of barriers we are putting up everywhere. Physical barriers we all know, and we are trying our best to remove it by bringing in ramps. Assistive technology has come in a big way to remove all those barriers, where you have the hearing aid, we have the sophisticated cane, you have a lot of endeavors that the government is taking, will definitely be, the gaps will be bridged. The greatest barrier of this is the attitudinal barrier, which over the years, through us professionals, maybe has been created, and it is our duty and responsibility now to remove the psychosocial barrier and see that inclusive education is not affected by the teacher's attitude, poor quality teaching, non support of the teachers and the schools, lack of teaching aids and equipments, having a rigid method and rigid curriculum. The attitudinal barrier had resulted in producing a person called Ira Singhal. She was an IS officer. She is an IS officer. She topped the UPSC exam in 2014, but she was prevented from getting a posting because of her disability. And this disability was not in her, but maybe it was there in the society at that time. This attitudinal barrier promoted Mr. Bharat, who is the who has won 2 international titles and more than 50 medals, to wash cars. He is in a position to sell his medals to get that extra money. Not many people know her, but this lady is Dr. Malini Chib. She is the daughter of Dr. Mitu Alur. And from this bright smile, you won't be able to understand that the time that she was born, the doctors said that a vegetable like her has got no business to live. Today, she is the author of many books, the first one being My Little Finger. She is the director of an organization called ADEPT. I think she has 2 master's degree to her credit. So attitudinal barrier, if it had persisted, probably she would not have been here. So today, when we are talking about understanding, identifying children's needs, instead of adopting the medical model where the child was in the center and the society said, turn the arrows in your mind. And the society said, problem is the child, problem is the child, problem is the child. Today, after so many years, we say the barriers are there in the society in the form of, so the organizations are also inflexible with their procedures and practices. So if we want to remove this social model of disability, if we want to introduce this social model of disability and we come to the rights model of disability, I think we have the perfect weapon in our hand, which is the new education policy. So today, when we are going to talk about, or we are talking about identification, and Sir has set the tone right by talking about the capacities, by talking about the powers that these people have, by talking about the way that we need to chalk out, where we don't look only at the deficits, but we walk with a capacity building perspective rather than a deficit finding one. So the new education policy, if we look into it, the main thing that it talks about is an equitable and just society. Please note these 2 words, equitable and just society. And it talks about recognizing, identifying, fostering what? The capabilities of each student. And when we say each student, my child with disability is automatically included in that. And for this, teacher sensitization, parent sensitization will have to be looked into it, but we also have to look into the holistic development of each child. And the guiding principle is equity and inclusion, which talks about flexibility from the part of the teachers. And it talks about building in conceptual understanding rather than rote learning and learning for exams. I'm going to skip few parts because I think we have started late and all of you would be eager to, end. So please tell me 5 minutes before if I've overstepped my time. So it's also important that life skills are looked into, for example, communication, cooperation, teamwork, resilience. So I can see from this policy, we are not talking about identifying defects that can be mended or repaired. Rather, we are talking about creating human beings who are going to work together towards building a society. In this, uh, an emphasis is on formative assessment. Now, I have specifically brought this into mind because it's very important for the primary teachers to understand that every day can be formative assessment. Every day does not have to be a formative assessment through reading and writing, but every activity, every action, everything that we plan for the child to speak, to work, and use the three H, that is the head and the heart and the hand, can become a process of identifying and understanding the child's as a whole. In this, of course, technology will play a big role, but though it's written here, even with zero technology, we can bring in a lot of change. So, as we have said, full equity and inclusion remain the cornerstone of all educational decisions to ensure that all students are able to thrive in the education system. So, that means it's important for us to understand these three pictures. Is this picture familiar to you? Have you all seen this before? Do you all have the idea of three things that it talks about: inequality, equality, as well as equity? So if these three pictures are there, if you focus on the first top half, the apple, only one person has got, and the other one, it's not his right. That is inequality. This situation does not persist here. But imagine the situation of equality where both of them have been given a ladder, but one ladder is so far away that the person cannot reach. So, what is the use of this equality? Through this equality, a person with disability comes and sits in the classroom. But what is the use? You don't even have any curriculum adaptation for him to understand or her to understand what is happening in the classroom. You have only one mode of assessment where the child has to write the paper and this person does not have the ability to write. So, what kind of equality is that? That is where we shift our focus to something called equity, where if you look at the ladder length, one ladder's height is more than the other. So, identify. The topic is identify. But the topic is not identify the child's deficits. The topic is identify the child's support needs and accordingly provide. So that is where we come to the social model of disability, and we are establishing equity like this. It's no use giving me a bicycle and me sitting on a wheelchair. Give me a bicycle that I can ride. And that's where, from the social model, we have jumped to the rights model of disability. It's my right to be with disability. It's my right to be a left handed person. You give me a left hander's desk, right? You don't ask me to change my manner or my preferential hand. Um, how would equity in classroom look? Would any of you, even for 30 seconds, give me a response on how you would create equity in the classroom? Okay, so this is how it looks, where the stool sizes are varied so that the curriculum, the books can be reached. So that's what, as teachers, now you consciously have to understand and locate this equity in your classroom, where your quality of teaching and learning in the classroom will definitely become much, much, much better. You have to understand how to give access to the teachers, how to give access to the teaching materials, how to give access to the school, how to give access to the facilities to all children, irrespective of the fact whether they are with some disabilities or whether they are not. Because we will keep in mind that every individual is unique. So when we look at again equity in the classroom, if we talk about, there are four important components that we identify. One, the tree; two, the fruits; three, the persons; and four, the support materials. So tree. What is tree? Tree is the textbook and other reading material. What is the fruit? Naturally, the objective of your lesson, what you want to achieve. Who are these people? If you notice, the persons are not at the same height, they are at different height. That means these students have different support needs. I don't need to locate this child is special. No, because each child is special, each child is unique, each child has a different need. So, accordingly, if I prepare my lessons, accordingly, if I do a curriculum delivery, it should reach every person. So that's where my supportive materials, which you can see, this slightly higher and the highest, these have to be prepared by us, the teachers. Um, I would request you all, if the sound does not come, let me know, to watch this video. While you're watching this video, please look into the growth of the tree and what is happening to the roots and how you develop the leaves and the fruits. And please identify who is the sunlight. So I would request you to watch this.
Wait! Did you download Grammarly?
Talking and using language is a huge part of everyday communication. But how does it develop? Language development can be compared to the growth of a tree. Imagine a newborn child is like a seed. First, a tree has to grow roots before it can start growing its trunk. Think of these roots as the child's understanding. The roots are the foundation of a tree, as understanding is the foundation of language. A trunk of a tree starts very small, but continues to grow as the roots do. The trunk can be compared to the child's vocabulary. At first, a child can only say a few single words. Once a child's trunk or vocabulary is large enough, it will begin to grow branches. These branches are sentences. Children will begin to make sentences once they've developed around 50 words. The next to grow are the leaves. The leaves represent the grammar or sentence structure of language. Finally, the last thing to develop once the tree has enough leaves are the fruit. This fruit can be compared to the child's speech sounds. They will fully develop once basic language is in place. Now we know the stages that language develops, but how do we help this tree grow? Child's language is developed through hearing language, also known as language input. This can be compared to watering a tree. You have to water the roots of a tree for it to thrive, meaning the emphasis should be on feeding a child's understanding rather than forcing them to imitate adult speech. The last important element involved in growing a tree is sunlight. This is equivalent to praise and encouragement. Praise brightens a child's mood and increases their confidence in using language. Encouragement and praise make language development fun and more likely to stick.
Okay, so when we looked into the video, immediately after we did the equity, so in this, there is each child is growing into a tree. So each child's roots have to be watered. Each child's roots have to be allowed to go down. You have to develop the leaves. You have to, only then the fruits will come. So you become the sunlight, which, now you must understand one thing. If you are keen on gardening, all plants require sunlight, but some plants wither with a lot of sunlight. Some plants wither in the dark. Some plants need moderate sunlight. So we as teachers need to understand how much of sunlight are we going to give. Should we give a lot? Should we give moderate? Or should we give a little? The child is independent here. So in this way, again, depending on the support need of the child, the sunlight is going to be disseminated. If we don't do that, let's look at the reality. This is what happens. If you look into the center, you can see a picture. This picture is a very, very popular picture, and the headmaster sits there and says, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam because we're talking about equality. Please climb the tree. Now he's asking the little bird to climb the tree. He's asking the monkey to climb the tree. He's asking the huge elephant to climb the tree, the little penguin to climb the tree, the fish to climb the tree, the see, what is that? The walrus to climb the tree, as well as the dog to climb the tree. This may seem very funny to us, but this is exactly what we are doing all the time. And if you look at our classroom, there is no curricular adaptation. Everything is the same for everyone all the time. Be it primary, be it secondary, we have objectives, yes. We plan, yes, but we plan for the whole class. We don't think of that picture or that image which says every tree is different, every tree needs different amount of watering, different measure of sunlight. We don't work on any kind of game-based methods. We are hesitant to appoint the class management techniques. There are only rules and rules and rules where everything is planned as per the grade level. There is a complete homogeneity, and so what happens is inclusion is completely physical. There is no learner variability that is encouraged. So what has happened is the disability grows. There is so much of rote learning that is encouraged. A mind which was thriving, a mind which could think, a mind which could flower. This mind becomes a mind which is only there like an open bottle where you pour in knowledge, you seal the cap. If you pour in more, it overpowers and it overflows and goes out. So ultimately, there is no impact. Now, with this, we have come to the first half is over, where I have spoken about the development, different developmental domains. I have spoken about NEP 20. I have spoken about the support needs that are required to be looked into rather than the conditions of disability which says this one can't speak, that one can't hear, this one runs. So instead of putting little labels, let's look and practice a classroom where everyone can participate. Would anybody like to say anything? Do they have any questions? Or can I move ahead? Should I move ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So imagine this to be your classroom. The big book is your classroom. And in this book, probably if ma'am gives me the permission, gives me some other session, one day I can do universal design of learning for you. So in this, let us practice. I'm going to give you just a glimpse into that today. Let us practice different manners, different styles, different ways of teaching and learning. I always say my teachers in Goa are very, very creative. Those big jargons are not required. I have seen in government schools, I've seen in those, dilapidated, of course, now government school buildings are not dilapidated anymore. But in those buildings, what lovely creative minds have unfolded and how they have managed the classes, big classes, and they have practiced different modes of learning. When I was doing that All Can Learn project with SSA, I've really seen some very creative minds on display. So let's bring that back again, and then let's identify the support and give a little bit of help. And as we climb up, let's look at a system of education where I'm not trying to do away with identification of children with disabilities, but let that be the domain of psychologists, developmental pediatricians, therapists, the district early intervention center. Let us not bring those labels back into the classroom, which is my this huge green zone, which is called the tier 1. In this tier 1, let all the special educators and the typical educators, general educators, practice a lot of engagement with the children, keeping the learners engaged all the time through different kinds of activities. So, a child who does not listen, that child will sit and work. A child who does not listen will look at the pictures. A child who runs around in the class will still do the running around, but the running around will be towards a particular activity. Let us as teachers practice bringing in different kinds of materials. And different kinds of materials, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be, imported from the States. Let me collect for 1 month the stationery and the grocery that I buy. Let those empty packets be used in my class for reading. Let me make small dabbas with 5 sockets, and put little bit of karela, put little bit of sugar, put little bit of salt, and maybe 1 drop of lemon, and take it to the class and say, okay, now put your finger into it, put it inside your mouth, and explain the digestive, the salivary gland like that. Let me ask them to stand out in the sun and ask the friend to measure the shadow. So, in this way, let the engagement and the representation of different kinds of materials go hand in hand. Also, very important. After I teach in so many different ways, am I expected to assess only by means of paper pencil tests? No. Let me go ahead having different kinds of assessments, variety of procedures, so that every child will have at least something to talk about. If the child can't write, the child will talk. If the child can't talk, the child will do a role play. If the child will not do a role play, the child will sit and work on a project. So, in this way, let there be a learner centric environment. And in this way, what NEP 20 is talking about, concept conceptual understanding will take place, and there will be no scope for rote learning. As we proceed, with this model, I would like to show you some very simple ways that we can bring in this kind of a support based teaching learning system. First and foremost thing, we have to begin with that. Let's nurture a culture of kindness. Let's nurture a culture of identifying capabilities. Let's go ahead creating a compassionate classroom. Let us make the classroom rules, but let us not make it. Let the children sit down together and prepare some classroom agreements. So let the rules change into something called agreements, which the students have agreed to work upon. Let there be plenty of group activity. You will see your work will decrease. The children will be focused, the children will be attentive, the children will look into the person who is running around. The children will say, please sit down, we have work to do. You can see such motivated children are all sitting there. They're all very focused. There is only one single teacher, but they don't even need the teacher. Obviously, you'll have to plan. All those, call for a different session. Please do a lot of role playing. Corona has taught us to do fantastic PowerPoint presentation. But I think more than PowerPoint presentation, even for my B.Ed special education students, I am practicing things like doing information processing model through role play. And they're remembering much better. So have role plays where they can participate in class with happiness, with zest, and you can introduce your concept to the students so easily without them understanding that teaching is happening. Important. As Sir said, world is not very kind today. You can see, you can read a lot of disturbing news. I mean, today itself, there was a 9-year-old girl, I think she's been raped by a teenager. We know people being chopped off and put into the fridge. We've seen fathers killing their 2-year-old daughters because they don't have money and killing in the car. So he had the money to keep the car, but he didn't have the money to buy food for the daughter. So in this way, why is this happening? Why is this happening in a country like India? Because we are forgetting, which was so much ingrained in us, this social emotional vocabulary has to be rebuilt once again. Continuously tell yourself, instead of saying that I'm not good at this, say how can I improve? Instead of saying he or she is smarter than me, think how can I learn from her? Instead of saying, oh, let me stay here because I can't move, tell yourself that I like the challenge. In this way, it will be easy for us because it's a tumultuous time. It's difficult for us to manage emotions. So in your own classroom, in your own classroom corridor, please create opportunities for managing emotions. But to do that, one needs to nurture, as Carol Dweck says, a growth mindset and not fixed mindset, where we are not looking at challenges as overpowering and overshadowing us, but giving us challenges, helping us grow, helping us to better ourselves every single day. So, as I was saying, you may find restlessness, you may find children getting angry, aggressive, some people are screaming. Set up a calm down corner in your own classroom or just outside your classroom. Have these things there where students can just go and keep themselves busy. Who has said that they have to sit on the bench and listen to us all the time? Do we do that? We don't. Allow, very important, Give opportunities to talk. Use your doors, use your windows to have these calm down messages, to have these positive messages, to have these encouraging messages. Instead of saying, you are no good at this, praise the one who has shown some good behavior and let the others learn through positive behavior support. It's good to have a buddy. Please pair up, find out. And very important, teach students, children to be quiet, to be just listen to their minds. There's so much with technology. Technology is definitely good, but there is so much with technology all the time that somewhere that settling down is not there. Also, the mothers I have seen, they are always keeping students, children busy with one activity after the other. Why? Let them have some free time, free play, just to be look outside and watch how the breeze is blowing and the grass moves along with that. I would love it if you had shared your ideas, but I don't think the time will permit us. So I will go into other areas which you can do in the class, and keeping this in mind, automatically you don't need to know I am developing the support for whom. But through these processes, whoever needs the support, you will see the support automatically is given. It's very important. Many of our students look very disorganized. They don't pack their bags properly. They forget their books. Their notebooks remain incomplete. Leave it to them. Give them the responsibility. Prepare these self-monitoring checklists and hand it over. Use one class of yours. Believe me, you will be able to complete your syllabus much better if you sit down in one class and sit down with your children to develop these self-monitoring checklists. Because as NEP 20 talks about developing collaborative skills, critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, when we have to develop all these skills, one has to be responsible for one's learning. All these self-assessments, checklists, all these, how to manage emotions, how to go get myself back to work, all these things have to be there. Along with that, have these kind of visual activity schedule along with your timetable. There are children who learn much better through visuals. So the timetable that is there, let it be there. Along with that, have these activity schedules in your class. Have, I'll first do this, then I'll do this, next I'll do this, and last, when I'm happy, you will take me out to the field for a run. It's important that we play a role in developing the language, the cognition, the social emotional aspect, the physical aspect, by being completely playing the role of a facilitator rather than the teacher. You will see the children are being more curious. You will see that the children are developing their thinking skills. You will see that the language is growing. And obviously, all these things would be done through activities, right? So naturally, the physical domain has to develop. So we have to remember that we will assess and teach differently. We will give a lot of hands-on activity. For example, you will see that we will teach numbers in a different way. You will see science being taught through hands-on activity. You will notice fractions are being done like this. Look into the question papers. Make it simpler by using these color codings, identifying the keywords. Give them graphic organizers and ask the students to make their own graphic organizer. See how much they enjoy the whole process. Such difficult things, the children, after going through the graphic organizers, built up their own graphic organizer without any reference. Let them participate. Give them little portions to study. Ask them to come and create. Every time in the primary level, it doesn't need to be with words, it can be with pictures also. Give them the chance to draw. In this way, their creativity, which is again a very important focus of NEP20, will grow. In this way, you will, without even understanding the child whom you thought did not know anything, you will see how beautifully this child can draw. So encourage these kind of actions, and you don't need a sophisticated whiteboard. My students have done it on the floor. So be as creative as possible, be as Indian as possible. As Indians, we can sit down anywhere, right? And we can start working on anything. Use a lot of visualization. See, why do you have to make your notebook such that they will be just words and words and words? Why not they color? Why not they create organizers? Why not they have little pictures there? Why won't they have the freedom to use as many colors as they want to? And let them read those notebooks instead of reading and mugging up the question answers which they do all the time. Use a lot of puppetry. Children laugh, children enjoy, children have a good time, and children learn. So, see, with all these puppets, these are my B.Ed teachers trainees in one of the schools. They had used puppetry to bring in concept development. Very good. So you can see a lot of skills are being developed. Children are encouraged to speak, children are encouraged to share, children are encouraged to think, and children are encouraged to create because they have created their own puppets. Use a lot of art. Use a lot of art because it will also quieten them, it will also bring them down. You can have these breakup activities through art. You have a lot of have a vocabulary book done in the class. So whichever subject teacher comes in, English, science, EVS, math, Konkani, there are words there. Let the children pick up and create their own vocabulary book like this. Do a lot of experiential learning and let them learn by doing on their own. Let them, whatever they're writing down, whatever they're working, give them a lot of models to work upon. In this way, what will happen is the learning will be very, very holistic. One small last thing that I would like to say is keep the cube on the run all the time. What you do is with one concept, please have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 kinds of assessments. Hand it over to the children. Let them roll out the dice, and whatever comes, let them follow that. So, in this way, what will happen is they will feel that we are not being pressurized, we are not being forced to do something, but it is always the learner who's having the last say. So let's look into this, and after that we'll take the question answers.
We are the dreamers, we make it happen. Guess we believe it. Look who we are. We are the dreamers, we make it happen. Cause we can see it. Let's do the one that keep the passion. We expect. Oh yeah. Let's do the one that got imagine. We expect. Oh yeah. believe it. Look who we are. We are the dreamers. We make it happen. Cause we can see it. It's through the one that keep the passion. We expect. Oh yeah. It's through the one that got the passion. We expect. Oh yeah. We are the dreamers and make it happen. Guess we believe it. Look who we are. We are the dreamers. We make it happen. Cause we can see it. It's through the one that keep the passion. We expect. Oh yeah. We expect. Oh yeah. It's through the one that got the passion. We expect. Oh yeah. Look who we are. We are the dreamers. We make it happen. Guess we believe it. Look who we are. We are the dreamers. We make it happen. Cause we can see it. It's through the one that keep the passion. We expect. Oh yeah. It's through the one that got the passion. We expect. Oh yeah. Gather round now, look at me. Respecting up the only way. If you wanna come with me. The door is open to every day. This one plus two rendezvous all in body. This what we do, how we do. Look how we are.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
It
you.
was a wonderful presentation, and the last video said it all. It is what you preached and what you are actually practicing in your college with your students and also in the schools. Wonderful. We have
Thank
little time for questions. If you have for ma'am, is there anyone who has any question? Kindly unmute yourself and you can ask the question if you have any questions. Looks like, ma'am, you have answered so many of their questions, or most of their questions, or they don't want to ask you any more questions.
I'm
And we can
scared
give
when there are no questions. I tell my students that means you've not understood anything or you don't want to listen to me.
No, ma'am, but seriously, it was a lovely presentation. You brought to light, how full equity is important more than anything. So the key word is full equity. How in the classroom we must pay attention to equity, and it's a must. And your various methods like build their social, emotional vocabulary, practice lots of role play, roll the dice. That was very nice. Use visualization and your various
Use
methods
colors,
like build
puppetry,
their social,
set up
emotional
a
vocabulary,
calm down
practice
corner.
lots
I
of
like
role
that.
play. Give talk time. Roll the dice. That was very nice. Talk time. Use visualization and your various methods like build their social, emotional vocabulary, practice lots of role play. Roll the dice. That was very nice. Talk time. Use visualization and your various methods like build their social, emotional vocabulary, practice lots of role play. Roll the dice. That was very nice. Talk time. Use visualization and your various methods like build their social, emotional vocabulary, practice lots of role play. Roll the dice. That was very nice. Talk time. Use visualization and your various methods like build their social, emotional vocabulary, practice lots of role play. Roll the dice. That was very nice. Talk time. Use visualization and your various methods build their social, emotional vocabulary.